Hello, everyone. Still celebrating Easter. We celebrated for 40 days. So, today I want to try like a new genre, I guess. Like rather than telling just one story, just talking about whatever memories come to my head. like, on a specific theme, like on Easter, right? Don't know. I think it'll be interesting. Just yeah, memories. So one memory that comes very clearly is me. Okay, so I'm gonna do it in a different style. Okay, so standing on the church steps when I was like 10 years old, dressed in my best suit. Okay, tradition was always to dress up as nicely as we can on Easter and Christmas. What was I waiting for? I was waiting for my best friend at the shop. Yeah, I was waiting for Easter and Easter services, but yeah, for my best friend to show up. He'll stay there with like with my hand inside my suit vest, like in a Napoleon kind of stance. I knew it was a Napoleon kind of stance, so I thought that was kind of cool for some reason. uh, so yeah, having Russian language all around me, and feeling of like middle night spring air. It was all dark, of course. It was in the middle of the night, at midnight, just before midnight. And just standing there, not going into his church, waiting for my best friend to show up. And yeah, so Easter. Yeah, the processions. Processions like the procession of the taking Jesus' shroud, his burial hall, or an icon around the church. That's on Holy Friday. Yeah, those are like really deep memories of me. For me, like 1 year it was raining, and they were thinking of canceling the procession. My dad's like, "No, you can't cancel the procession." So we put like a plastic, like just plastic over the over the shroud, and had the procession in the pouring rain. Yeah, my dad was no, you cannot not do the procession. And the procession, of course, that starts off the Easter service around the church. Our church was beautiful. It was a very big church. I would call it a cathedral. Um, in the like Vladimir style of architecture. With how many domes? One, two, three, 5 or 6. Probably seven. Seven is a 7 domes. And just with the like architecture of like arches and domes and mosaics, we actually did the mosaic of Saint. Oh, did we do it? No, we didn't do it, actually. That was another mosaic we did. We did the mosaic and the cathedral in California. But, oh, so we had the mosaic done in Mexico. But my dad was like, St. Vladimir looks too Mexican. He looks like a Mexican. He doesn't look like a Russian. And so actually we reworked the face. So he'd look more Russian. Anyway. So yeah, Easter is a wonderful, beautiful time of year. So yeah, there's random Easter memories. Having the feast after Easter, of course. And the Easter service is so beautiful. It's the most joyous service in like the Orthodox Christian Church. It's just, it's amazing. And afterwards, all the food, and of course we keep Lent, so we weren't able to eat this food, like meat, cheese, eggs, all that kind of stuff, even fish. We weren't able to eat for 47 days. Yeah, to have all that food. Some years we'd host it in our, the after, so the service starts at midnight. Even earlier, but most people come at midnight for the procession. And then last till like 3 o'clock in the morning. And people go home to eat, but we hosted like an Easter meal at our store down the street. 1 year. I remember that. So, and the processions, so I was always the altar boy, and so I'd hold a candle as, we'd have several altar boys holding the candles as the priest is going around the church, shouting out, Christos voskrese, Christ is risen. Everybody answers, Vaisna voskrese. And we do it in Greek also. Christos aneste, Christos aneste. And in English, of course. Yeah, it was just so, it was, like I said, the most joyous celebration. And taking place in the middle of the night was always really cool, too. And being able to stay up all night. When you're a kid, being able to stay up all night, it was like something really special. That's my Easter egg tree. So, the mountains. So when I was a teenager, I thought I'd do this more at random, and you wouldn't guess what age I was, but I don't know. My friends and I would go up to the mountains, like on Easter Sunday, or usually on Easter Sunday, and we'd hike up into the mountains with a bunch of food and beer and other alcohol. Good lager. Yeah, like Easter was the beginning of hiking season, and going out and have parties on top of the mountain with my friends. Usually I would hike alone, but on Easter, yeah, we'd usually organize Uh, a hike to the mountains. So yeah, those were really fun times. We'd like hike all day for like 10 hours and then get to Sault Ste. For Easter, and then we'd get up like Easter Sunday. All the services are over. There's no services on Sunday except evening Vespers, which is a really beautiful service. They have like one of my favorite hymns. Um, yeah, Easter hymns in general are my favorite and most memorable. And so we'd hike up all day, so for about 10 hours. We'd hike Bear Mountain. And then we'd just make camp. We didn't have a tent or anything. We just, made a fire on top of the mountain. And I just hang out and eat and drink out of my horn. And I show you a close up of my horn. Yeah. We drink Goldschlager out of my horn. And and beer. And we just talk and sing. Yeah, we'd sing songs and everything, and have a fire going and eat a lot of food. It was a really great time, and I always organized it for like Easter, Easter Sunday, where like our first hike would be, and it'd be right, and we'd stay up all night, okay, eating, drinking with the fire, and going all night, and and then we'd fall asleep just on the ground. We didn't have tents even. I don't know why we didn't have tents, but because we didn't really plan to sleep much. And in the morning, we'd hike back. So, yeah, Easter's a wonderful time of year. Because it's like, about the resurrection of nature. And of course, Jesus, but even if you're not religious, it's about the resurrection of nature. And everything becomes green and life comes back to nature and flowers bloom and the weather gets warm. This is actually cool branch. The weather has been horrible here. So I guess this isn't only it's still a random thing like I want, but okay, the weather's been horrible here. And it snowed on April 20th for 2 days. And today it was like really cold and really windy. And like branches and trees are being blown out by the wind. So yeah, I found this like really interesting branch just laying on the road, and I decided to bring it home. As decoration to celebrate, like ancient people used to always bring in branches and flowers and stuff into their houses on spring, and obviously Christmas also. So I don't know if it's coming up, but it's really interesting branch. So yeah, everything about atmosphere was so like electrifying, and I mean you look forward to it for like months, for like 47 days, okay, almost 2 months. You're just looking forward to that one night. And yeah, it was just so magical and miraculous. Because, yeah, it was spring. And everything is coming back to life. So random memories, okay. My friend and I we were teenagers. And so, and we were altar boys. So we'd sit on the altar. But when, I guess, at a certain point, I remember, well, definitely one year, but probably more often, we decided not to go to communion on Easter. Because to go to communion, you have to fast and not eat any food. All right, the day before communion, and since the service starts at midnight. Anyway, we decided not to, so that at midnight we can eat meat. So we'd be doing our altar boy thing, right? And walking around with the candles as the choir is singing like beautiful melodies, the Easter melodies and everything, or the Easter hymns. And and we're walking around the church with the candles and everything. And for the Easter canon, there's 9 canons. And so in between the canons, there's Ectinos, where the priest thanks for God's blessing for all kinds of different things, right? And did one of my candles fall? No. Don't want to start fire. And so during that, and the choir answers with Gospod Mila, like Lord of Mercy, Kyrie eleison in Greek. And so my friend and I would sneak out of the church during the Extinas before our next point where we have to walk around with the candles and the priest and they sing together, right? And we had this walk-in refrigerator in the church house, right? And we walk into the refrigerator, a walk-in, like you literally walk in there, right? And we'd eat a bunch of meat, usually ham, right? And we'd stuff ourselves with a bunch of ham, and then because you could still hear the services going on from the walk-in refrigerator, and then when we heard our point is up, where we're needed, we'd come rushing back, often with our mouths still full of meat. And we'd go to the altar and grab the candles and then go around for I guess it's kind of like a procession through the church of the priests and the altar boys and the deacon. We didn't have a deacon. But anyway, and the priest shouting out his thoughts with scarcity and everything, and everybody answering so enthusiastically, please, no scarcity. And the choir singing the beautiful canon. And then we get back into the altar deck, I would go, start going on. And my friend and I would rush out into rush out of the church to the walk-in refrigerator and stuff our faces with meat until the beginning of the next canon. So yeah, it was kind of, I don't know. In retrospect, that was kind of disrespectful and stuff like that. But no, we didn't mean to be disrespectful. We were just starving for meat because, we kept Lent and we hadn't eaten meat in 47 days, and Yeah, I'm not going to communion on Easter, and us being altar boys. Nobody ever mentioned it actually, because I think we'd go to communion on the Saturday service during the day. So they kind of made up for it, but I think I don't know. But yeah, actually, nobody even like mentioned the fact that we didn't go to communion on Easter, and nobody ever mentioned the fact that we rushed out during the Exodus to stuff our faces with meat. I'm sure they noticed it, but nobody really cared. My dad never reprimanded us or anything, even though we'd walk into the altar with our mouths still stuffed with meat. But yeah, my dad didn't reprimand us. So yeah, and then after the service, the priest blesses all the Kulich Easter cakes and Pascha Easter like cheesecake and meats and everything that people bring in a basket. And of course, colored eggs. And then most people went home to have a big feast. But in our church, like when I was a kid and before I was 12, yeah, we didn't. Sometimes we'd host a like after service feast in our store we had nearby, right down the street. But other times we'd go home to our house and have a feast there. Uh, but then when we moved to New York, we'd always have a feast at the church house. We lived on the second floor of the church house and always have a post. Like after the service, we'd have a big feast with tons and tons of food. Okay, this is like my favorite picture of my Hornset. Yeah, a lot of great memories. Yeah, some of my yeah, the best memories of my friends are like going, yeah, especially on Easter morning. But we would do it several times, like through the summer. But especially on Easter morning, spending whole Easter hiking, Easter Sunday hiking the mountains, and then making a campfire on the top of like the highest mountains, and just celebrating, eating, drinking from my horn, and singing songs, and just really enjoying life and everything. The weather was usually always really beautiful, and yeah, it was great weather. So the weather was so nice that you can sleep outside without a tent, like I said. Right? And so yeah, those are some of my best memories of both Easter and my friends. Yeah. Yeah, the processions are really interesting, especially the Good Friday procession. It's like in Greek tradition, like all the people actually walk under the and called a plashtinitsa, like the shroud of Jesus on Good Friday. We don't have that in like Russian tradition, but so what are the memories? Memories of Easter in Kostomal. In Kostomal, I was like a reader. I was not only the main altar boy, but I was also a reader, and I also sang in the choir. So I like read a lot of the important things like the epistle and stuff like that. And then we'd have a gigantic feast at the end in our building. So Easter is always a really beautiful time of year. Yeah, everything's coming back to life. Like in normal countries here, well, yeah, everything has turned green here. But the weather is really bad. Like, if you saw any of my other videos, for about 2 or 3 weeks, we had a really nice spring weather, and then it just got really cold and started snowing, and well, that's normal for Russia, but I can't get used to it. And now the weather's just like cold and nasty. What other memories of Easter? I guess those are the best memories I have of Easter. My dad was like when we had my dad was the priest in a church in New York, and like New York State. And then like the bishops told him to like move to France. And like, you have to do what the bishops tell you. So we stayed at that church for 13 years in New York City. My dad was always so enthusiastic, and I mean, just I've never seen a priest filled with so much like joy and love and just real sincere joy on the Easter service. And I mean, and his like joy was like contagious. You couldn't be around him without being happy on Easter and the 40 days of Easter, right? And like when I went to the same church, how it used to be our church after my parents had moved to France. Like my friends were saying, it's just not the same without your dad. Like Easter's not the same without your dad. 'Cause yeah, his like Easter spirit, no one could compare, right? There is real, sincere, absolute joy. Yeah. And then it just like gets better Easter, and I always remember Easter like really great weather and green grass and green leaves on the trees and flowers everywhere. I don't remember one Easter that the weather was actually bad. I remember in actually Easter maybe a year ago in Castra, like and like the day before Easter, everything was still there was nothing green, and the snow was melted, but there was nothing green or anything. I was looking for the first signs of green, right? And and there was nothing. And then on Easter morning, everything started turning green. I walked out on Easter morning, and the trees were budding, and there was green grass and everything. And when I tell people that, they're like, "Yeah, right." It felt like a real Easter miracle. I'm like, no, I was taking pictures of what it looked like on Holy Saturday, right? And there was no green. I took pictures the next morning of the same spot, and like, yeah, it was green, and there were buds, and like my friends and students don't believe me, but really, that was the experience. That's a true experience, and I was really impressed by that, actually. Yeah, exactly on Easter. Right, and this year too, on Western Easter, is when everything started turning green. Right, or when things started turning green. Not everything, but things started turning green on Easter, Western Easter. And then on Orthodox Easter, yeah, everything was like blooming and budding and everything. And then on April 20th, we get a snowstorm. But yeah, actually, it's really nice. Despite the cold weather, it's really nice outside. As far as like green grass everywhere, and the trees are all budding, and flowers are blooming, and yeah, but the weather really sucks. But yeah, those are some of my memories of Easter. Oh, the bell ringing. How can I forget the bell ringing? Of course. Like different churches, like Orthodox churches, they have different traditions, but like, first of all, like our tradition. Well, yeah, I think that actually the traditions are pretty much all the same, but they do it a little differently in Russia. Like during the Good Friday procession, the bell is rung really the bells are rung really solemnly. It's called the funeral march, like one deep bell, then a higher tone bell, like after a couple seconds of silence, and then another uh, middle tone bell, and then a high bell and a deep bell, but done after like with silence between it. So yeah, it sounds like a funeral march. And then on the Easter procession, actually, what I remember, we don't ring the bells. Um, we only start ringing the bells when the priest knocks on the door of the church, and the door is opened up, and he sings the first Easter hymn, and says to everyone, "Christ is risen," and then we start ringing the bells. And we ring the bells like throughout the canon. And the bells are ringing not just in the beginning, but throughout the service. Basically, every time the priest comes out for the singing of the canon, the bells are ringing. The bells are ringing, and we ring bells. Like the tradition is, you can ring the bells any time you want for 40 days. So kids would run up and ring the bells anytime throughout the 40 days of Easter. And just kids would love to run up and just make a lot of random noise. So yeah, that's a really nice tradition too. And then yeah, we'd go and watch the sunrise on Easter. I still do that. I make sure that on Easter I watch the sunrise after all the services and after the feast and the meal. Uh, I go out to watch the sunrise. So yeah, I'm still celebrating Easter and enjoying Easter. So if anybody watches this, leave me a comment. It'll be interesting. How was your Easter? How'd you celebrate? I love fire. Easter fire. Okay, this wasn't as random as I was thinking, but yeah, it was good. Any other great memory? Yeah, those are my best Easter memories. That's the fire reflecting in the window. In my drinking horn. My drinking horn is the only thing I have from my teenager years. And I still have. Okay. So, happy Easter to everyone. Christos Voskresie. Christ is risen. Christos anesti in Greek. And Christos ist auferstanden in German. Goodbye, everyone. До свидания. Happy Easter from Russia. Auf Wiedersehen. Let's see how close up I can get of the fire. By the way, I made a video of Easter fire where my log is on fire. All the ruins are like burnt off already from making spring and Easter fire. Okay. Goodbye, everyone. Happy Easter.